this country is in search of a fairer electoral system, the system aims to enable citizens to contest provincial and national elections without being forced to join political parties. A new electoral amendment bill has been tabled before Parliament, but political analyst Dirk Kotze believes that the tabled bill is flawed. He joins us now to take that conversation forward and unpack the reasons why he believes this bill doesn't solve our problems. Prof, good afternoon. Thank you for your time. So this bill, let's start here. It took a while for us to get to the stage of even having a bill on the table. I see that it's tagged as B1 2022, and this comes 2 years after that finding of the Constitutional Court in the New Nation movement matter. Just the overall outlines before we get to what the problems are that you've identified with the bill. In your view, does it solve the problem that was identified of individuals while having the right to, choose their leaders and the right to be elected to hold office, until now being barred from doing that as individual, candidates for provincial and national elections?
Yes, the judgment in 2020 by the Constitutional Court was essentially about the position of independent candidates at national and provincial level. We do have it already at the local government level. The new One Nation movement was their application was specifically to say that the current situation of the proportional representation system in the National Assembly is only half of what the Constitution is saying. Section 19 is saying also, or it implies that individual candidates, especially independent candidates, must be able to stand in the same way as they are standing at local government level. So in that sense, the Constitution reached the conclusion that in its current form, the Electoral Act is unconstitutional and must be amended. And they gave Parliament 24 months or 2 years in order to do that. And that is where we are at the moment. We know that the Constitutional Court have now granted Parliament another 6 months until December in order to finalize this.
Yeah, so we are now here. We've got this B1 2022, which is the proposed amendments to the Electoral Act that are meant to make it possible for independent candidates to stand and be elected at provincial and national levels. But very early on, I was looking at the timeline digitally of Parliament, of where the bill stands, and I see that none of the stages it's supposed to go through are marked yet in terms of, being at the committee stage, National Assembly, etc., etc. Very early on, you are flagging problems. What are those problems, Prof?
Well, first of all, it is about what the Constitutional Court said, and that is that the motivation for independent candidates is that there must be an electoral system which can provide for voters or citizens or residents in order to have a much more direct contact or direct link with their representatives in Parliament. Secondly, that those who are in Parliament must be able to be more directly accountable to their constituencies or to those who voted for them. So that is the point of departure. And I think where the situation in the current bill has gone further than that and sort of, in my view, not completely deal with these issues are more or less the following. First of all, the Constitution also says that the outcome of the allocation of seats in Parliament, at the moment it's the 400 seats in the National Assembly, must in the end be in general proportional in nature. Now, what this bill is doing is proposing that 50%, that means in current terms 200, are those from the proportional representation, they call them compensatory seats, and the other 200 or 50% are not only individual candidates, but also not only independent candidates, but also individual candidates who are nominated by political parties. So this is now an additional category which is introduced. So they are not completely independent not linked to any political party. They are linked to political parties, but they are individuals. Very similar to our local government system, electoral system. Now, if the number of independent candidates are going up, if there's a significant number of independent candidates out of the 400 in total, or the 200, the 50% of the 200, of the 400, then it means that this system will not be able to produce an outcome which is generally proportional in nature. So this is the first component, I think, which will have to be looked at, is to what extent the element of proportionality is still incorporated in the new dispensation that's proposed. Secondly, is that for the independent candidates, as well as those nominated by political parties, the other 50%, that they will represent 9 constituencies, and those constituencies will be exactly the same as our provinces. Now, that means that there will be, therefore, multi-member constituencies. It will not be one representative per ward, as at local government level. It will be round about, for example, in Gauteng, maybe 35 or more representatives for the whole of Gauteng. So the question then is, to what extent will those representatives be able to meet those requirements of that they can account for what is happening in Parliament?
The element of locality appears to be defeated by what you are saying. Prof, I'm almost out of time, but I wanted to just check with you. There's another element that you speak to quite pointedly in your article in The Conversation. It has to do with the political parties. In addition to the 200 under the current formulation, out of the 400 seats, if 200 would be proportional representation, the other 200 meant to be contested by individual independent candidates, as well as individual candidates nominated by political parties. It's the nominated by political parties that you have a problem with. Why, Prof? Was it ever going to be possible to have a system where it's entirely independent candidates contesting? Because my understanding is that even where there are constituency systems in other countries, political parties still contest in those spaces.
Yes, but it takes us back to the judgment by the Constitutional Court, which didn't refer even to the idea of politically nominated individual candidates. They only concentrated on independent candidates. I think the problem is that the politically nominated candidates are going to compete against the independent candidates. And the independent candidates will, because of the fact that parties will be able to provide their own infrastructure for their nominees, they will provide financial assistance for their own nominees, while the independent candidates don't have that support basis. It will mean that the playing field is not level for the two. So this system will certainly, in my view, in my interpretation, will benefit those individual candidates who are nominated by political parties against those who are completely independent.
All right, Prof, let's leave it there for now. I'm pretty sure this is a conversation that you and I will return to over the coming weeks and months as this bill makes its way through the parliamentary processes. That's Professor Dirk Kotze there weighing in on the new bill that is meant to amend the Electoral Act such that it allows for independent candidates to contest, as was instructed by the Constitutional Court 2 years ago.